Hey everyone, this is Lil. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to the concept segment. So you heard me talk about this in the story segment this week. We're going to be talking about savoring. And I've started to explain a bit of what this is, but we're going to spend a little bit more time here. And I'm going to start not by explaining the concept to you, but by trying to explain the experience of this concept. So I want to start with just having you trying to imagine savoring something. And it's something that we've probably all done, which is enjoyed a delicious dessert. So I want you to imagine that you are in front of, let's see, what is my favorite dessert in this moment? I think in this moment I'm going to go with a lemon meringue. I know that's probably not a popular choice, so you think about what it is that is your favorite dessert, and I just want you to imagine that you have it in front of you right now. In imagining it's right in front of you in this moment, I want you to take a moment to think about what color it is, what it looks like, what the plate it's on looks like. What does the shape of your dessert look like? What's the texture? How vivid are the colors? And now I want you to imagine that you're biting into that or cutting into it or whatever it is. I don't know why I went with biting into it as the first option, but I guess I'm assuming it's already on your fork and just focusing on how delicious it tastes, what flavors you're noticing, if it's maybe salty or sweet. You know what? I'm actually going to change mine to my favorite dessert right now, and it is something I'm weirdly having pretty often, is vanilla ice cream with crunchy peanut butter on top of it with a drizzle of olive oil and sea salt. My God, delicious. So I'm in my savoring right now, recalling the saltiness that meets that sweetness, and the olive oil gives it a weird kind of richness that's just really, really nice. Okay, now I've taken it too far in this savoring, but this is about getting back to you. So how are you experiencing what you are tasting in your imaginary dessert that you're savoring right now? And now I want you to imagine you're not just having that dessert, but you're doing it in an experience with people that you want to be around. And even if you're not around those people in this moment, maybe you're just feeling really connected to someone. And even zoom out further to see, what's the temperature like? Where are you? Are you outdoors? Is the sun shining on your face? Is there a nice cool breeze? What is happening outside of the moment of just enjoying that dessert? And as you're imagining this right now, I want you to take a moment to just reflect on what's happening in your body. What are the sensations in your body? How do you feel? Are you noticing that you are maybe breathing a little lighter? I'm noticing in me and just imagining my own version going through this. I notice that I'm smiling as I'm recalling this moment or just bringing this to my awareness. And what we just did together is essentially an example of a savoring practice. And it's not even a savoring of something that exists in our memory, but something that you conjured up by imagining and recalling elements from your memory that you have probably savored about that experience or elements of that experience before. And in connecting to how it feels in your body and how you're just soaking up all the goodness in that moment. And it's also this expression of gratitude. And so, as I shared in my stories earlier, in actually all three there were difficulty and also really deep gratitude. In the story about friends, there was connection, but that connection came through some deep and difficult sharing. And of course, the story about my mom being one that is incredibly difficult, and also one that was a very deep moment of gratitude. It's about the process of fully engaging with and appreciating positive experiences and emotions and sensations, the gratitude in those moments. It also speaks to the intentionality of it, because there was deliberate action taken by you right now in going through that process. It was about recalling it and holding space to do that. We really had to reserve the time to do that, And sometimes moments of savoring just pop up for us. Let's say if you're, driving by a place that holds a specific memory for you, but in using it as a practice, it's really about having those deliberate and intentional moments of recalling those things we savored, or taking the time to amplify or imaginate into or project. I think I made up some words there, but that's okay. We're going to go with it. Some of them are real words. I'm not sure about all of them, but imagining a situation that allows you to engage your senses and spend a moment really experiencing that gratitude. So to do savoring, you can see just even in what I explained that there's a number of different cognitive processes or thinking processes that need to be involved in doing that imagination. There's emotional elements of how it feels to be in those experiences or recall those experiences. And the reason why savoring, I think, is getting a lot of new attention in the literature is because it's about enhancing the richness and intensity of gratitude or positive experiences. So even if it's not a positive experience, it can just be a moment of deep gratitude or appreciation. And we know from the literature that the practice of savoring is associated with greater well-being. It's something that is a tool I think so many of us can use, or that certainly I use anyways, to try to strengthen and consolidate memories that I am grateful for, or moments that I'm grateful for, in a way that allows me to recall them and get those benefits from them when I need a moment of connection or joy. And I am a very people-centered person. My top VIA strength is love, and that makes total sense, I think, because I like to be really connected to people, and people are what tends to show up the most for me. So a lot of my savoring is around moments of being very present and grounded in a moment, but it often involves other people or connection to other people. And in moments when I can feel lonely or maybe a bit isolated, which saying that even feels weird because loneliness is a word that seems to have such stigma associated to it, but is something that I think many of us, myself included, feel very often. But allowing myself to savor moments that reflected connecting experiences is a way for me to feel connected, even in moments when I am by myself. And that helps to foster that sense of belonging in a way that is really powerful for me. But I'm getting off track. So there's some really cool emerging literature right now that's talking about the relationship in savoring and memory, and how savoring is something that has enhanced memory, recall, and recognition, and also the experience of something feeling positive, which I think is really, really cool. Because if we think about something like negativity bias, we know that we are way more hardwired to look for things that are negative and that may be threats to us in our environment. And so if we can train our brains to savor moments that give us joy or that make us feel connected, or just allow us to recall a very powerful moment of being present in an experience, those are all things that I think could really combat that negativity bias. Because if we know that we have the ratio of we need 5 positive things to offset 1 negative thing, and we know that there's been some more recent literature that suggests that number is even higher. So training our brain to lean into the savoring and to find the goodness and to experience it fully within all of our senses. And some of what we talked about in the stories segment today is savoring the past. So looking back on past experiences, and in the literature that's sometimes called reminiscence. They're savoring the present or savoring the moment. That's what we did in the story with my friend and I sitting on the paddleboard. We actually did that savoring together. And there's also a third type of savoring, which is called anticipation. And that's about savoring the future, or visualizing or imagining, like we talked about, something that you're looking forward to. I always feel like I'm doing an injustice when I go through these concepts, because there's so much richness in the literature that one could speak to, and it would be impossible without getting into all very deep, nuanced tangents. But I really want anyone who is interested in this literature base to check out the work of Doctors Fred Bryant or Joseph Veroff. They were really the pioneers starting to talk about savoring and have a host of literature around that. And I'm also going to post in the show notes an article that talks about what savoring is in a bit more detail and offers a bit more of an in-depth view of the literature, so that those of you that are interested in learning more have a resource you can go to. And I'd also really like to hear if there's anything in particular that you'd like me to get into, because I'm always trying to balance sharing information and keeping it high level enough that it's accessible. So for the purposes of this podcast, what I tend to do is speak to a very narrow slice of the literature base connected to the stories I'm sharing, but I really want to share that there is a full and expansive literature base around this. And if you are interested, reach out and I'd be happy to share further resources beyond some of the ones I'm going to put in my show notes. So to summarize, savoring is about fully experiencing the joys, the appreciation of an experience, and it's about actively attending to the environment you are in, the experiences and emotions, the feelings, and leaning into those experiences to boost feelings of connectedness, happiness, and as a practice of mindfulness. And maybe the final thing I'll say, like I said with any practice, is that consistency and habit formation is key. So think about how you can incorporate savoring into your day-to-day to make it stick and get those benefits. I'd love to hear if any of these practices resonated for you or what dessert you savored. And we're going to head over to the practice segment right now, where I'm going to share a couple different ways that you might lean into the practice of savoring if this is something you're interested in checking out. And as always, thank you for being on this journey with me. This is Lil, and you're listening to Lil on Life. If you're enjoying this podcast, please like, follow, and leave a 5-star review. If you'd like to reach out, you can get me on my Gmail at lilonlifepod@gmail.com. That's Lil with one L, onlifepod@gmail.com. Or on my socials, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, at Lil on Life Pod. Lil on Life podcast is produced by Brando & Co. Brandon is a photographer, director, and podcast producer. You can see some of his creations on Instagram at Brandon Allen. Get in touch to see how you can collaborate. Opinions expressed in this podcast are my own and may not reflect those of my employers. If you or someone you know is in danger, please dial 911. If you or someone you know is thinking about suicide, call or text 988. Support is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That number again is 988. Lil on Life is a Big B and Little L collaboration.